Hello and welcome to another episode of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey. We are here on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel, and we today have bracket in hand, and we are going to be filling out our official picks for the upcoming NCAA tournament. Or I guess I shouldn't even say upcoming anymore. It is alive and well. We have two games already underway, two more to come this evening. Give a couple of minutes for people to get in here. Obviously, as always, thank you for tuning in. Please leave any questions you do have in the chat today, and we will be answering those as we make our way through the entire bracket. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel so you can catch these live episodes of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also find the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show on Spotify or wherever you do listen to your podcasts. And obviously, also follow me on Twitter at BRamseyKSR, where you can catch all of my content, whether it be the YouTube show, the podcast, all of my written work on KentuckySportsRadio.com, part of the On3 Sports Network, all that good stuff lives again on my Twitter at BRamseyKSR. So I've seen some people do this over the last couple of days. I'm going to try to not make this too boring, but I did think it would be a good idea and a good way to just cover everything as a whole. I'm not gonna. I I don't have the bandwidth or the time right now with everything that's going on in March Madness to sit here and do super in depth, region by region previews. Um, do put out 15 different videos about my top double digit seeds that might win a couple games or number one seeds that'll go down early, all that good stuff. I'm just going to try to do it all at once. Hopefully, we'll keep this under an hour today, or at least around there. And we're going to answer all of your questions. We're going to kind of cover all of the topics. And what better way to do it than just run through the bracket, make some picks, and go from there. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right into it. Excuse me. And again, we're not going to spend 15 minutes breaking down every single game because I don't think anybody necessarily wants to listen to that. But we are going to answer any questions you may have and just talk about some hot button issues or whatever it may be as they come up through the bracket. So we're going to start off here in the East region. Which, first of all, you can leave your answers in the chat if you're watching right now, or hit me up later if you're watching it not live. But when you fill out a bracket, do you go full region and then another full region? Do you go up and down? Do you go side to side? See, like what I do as I'm looking at it, I'll fill out the first round of the East region, then I go down first round of the West region, back to the top right, first round of the South region, first round of the Midwest, then I go back to the East, second round, et cetera, et cetera. I think everybody kind of has their specific way of doing it. That's how I do it. That's how we are going to do it here on All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey today. So I think it's safe to say we're advancing the defending national champion UConn Huskies in that first game. Really, not much to talk about there. I do want to mention Jalen Blackman for Stetson. This is a guy that scored 43 points in the ASUN championship game against Austin Peay. The son of James Blackman, who played at Kentucky, the brother of James Blackman Jr., who played at IU, an electric player who could put up points against the Huskies, but just can't imagine it's going to matter much. Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. I think this is a tough one. Florida Atlantic, obviously coming off of a Final Four from last season, returned pretty much everybody. John L. Davis, a great player. A lot of their other guys as well, but none of them are Boo Buie. I think he is good enough. If this game's close down the stretch, I like Boo Buie and Northwestern to move on. Especially to me, this FAU team got overseeded a little bit. I think we were all surprised um, that they got an 8 seed, probably more of a 9 or 10 in our minds, but that's part of why I like Northwestern to advance here. I have San Diego State over UAB. Coach Andy Kennedy does a great job with the Blazers, but let's face it, they weren't really expected to be here. They struggled pretty mightily through different parts of the season, and I think this Aztecs team can carry some water in the tournament for the Mountain West, the highest seeded Mountain West team in this bracket. I like Auburn to beat Yale here in the East region. Auburn's a team, obviously, came and won the SEC tournament. A lot of people probably feel they're underseeded here at a 4, especially, when you're looking at this from UConn's standpoint. They have the Big 12 champion, 2 seed Iowa State, somebody that some people thought the Cyclones could have been the number 1 seed. They get the number 2 here. You have the Big 10 champion, Illinois, as your 3 seed, and you have the SEC champion at the number 4 in Auburn. So the committee did the defending national champs, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. They did them no favors here by giving them 3 conference champions at the 2, 3, and 4 seed lines. But we'll talk a little bit more about Auburn as we progress through the tournament. I do like BYU to beat Duquesne. If you listen to the show, I've kind of been a seller of the Cougars throughout the season. But again, and it's a great story with Coach Keith Dambrot coaching his final game or final games at Duquesne. He's already announced his retirement. Leading into the season, one thing to watch for here: BYU shoots a ton of threes, and Duquesne is pretty darn good defensively, especially at taking teams away from 3-point range. So if this one is close, it's likely going to be because Duquesne does a good enough job of taking BYU away from 3. But I just have a hard time seeing it play out that way. Illinois is going to beat Morehead State. I love Coach Preston Spradlin. I think that's a name that you're going to know a lot about 10 to 15 years down the road when he's made it to a Final Four at a high major school. They won the OVC tournament. Terrence Shannon Jr., All-American, big guards, talented players there at Illinois. Just going to be too much. This Washington State Drake game is one I spent a lot of time on. I think that Tucker DeVries could be the best player in this game. I like that Drake has some momentum coming off of winning the Missouri Valley tournament. But I actually think Washington State is pretty darn good. Now, what you think of the Pac-12 obviously matters here. I don't think the Pac-12 is great, but this was they were the de facto second best team in the Pac-12 throughout the season. They beat Arizona at Arizona. This is a team that won 8 straight games at one point late in the year, finished 14-6 in the league. They're really, really good defensively. To me, this is just one where Drake, coming out of the Missouri Valley, isn't used to playing a team like Wazoo. So I'm going to take Washington State here to advance. And then Iowa State over the Jackrabbits. Don't see a upset there. The Cyclones just too good defensively. Going down, Wagner beat Howard in a heck of a game last night. Certainly more excited than the other play-in game on Tuesday night, but Wagner, no chance against the Tar Heels. Another excellent toss-up game here, Mississippi State or Michigan State. I think that you have, obviously, it's Izzo and March. It's hard to pick against the Spartans. I like Tyson Walker. I like those guards. They've had lineup issues at the 5. No issues at the 5 for Mississippi State with Tolu Smith and what they can do around the basket. I like the Spartans here. I'm just not going to bet against Coach Izzo in March just yet. Finally, let's get a good upset pick here in the 5-12 matchup between St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. I'm going with Grand Canyon in this matchup. I know it's trendy to take 12s over 5s, and probably one of them is going to happen. And I like Grand Canyon's chances here. I think there's a good chance that Grand Canyon is just the better team in this matchup. I think on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, the line was 5.5, but you have an Antelope squad coached by Bryce Drew that's won 29 games this season on their way to winning the WAC this year, going 17-3 in the league, then winning the conference tournament pretty handily. Tyon Grant Foster very well is going to be the best player in this game, which I think matters a lot. Then you have other guards like Ray Harrison. You have a pick and pop 4-man and Gabe McLaughlin. Colin Moore can do some things out of the backcourt for the Antelopes as well. Duke Brennan, a big guy around the basket that helps as well. I know Abe Mahaney, all these guys that can shoot for St. Mary's, but I think you're going to have 3 factors here. 1, Tyon Grant Foster is the best player in the game. 2, both of these teams are really, really good defensively. So it's going to be a close game, I think. And then if it's close, I'm going to take the best player, and then I'm going to take the team that's a significantly better free throw shooting team. Grand Canyon, 75.3% from the free throw line. That's 54th in the country. St. Mary's, 323rd in the country, 67.4%. In a close game, that's going to matter. Grand Canyon, the 12 seed, is going to knock off St. Mary's. I've got Alabama over Charleston. That's going to be an up-tempo game. Just think Alabama has a little bit too much firepower in that one. Another upset, I'm taking New Mexico, the 11 seed over 6 seed Clemson. PJ Hall's had a great year. Brad Brownell has done a good job with this group to get them towards the top of the ACC, but this was a very down ACC. I'm kind of selling them as a conference across the board. And I don't necessarily think the Mountain West is going to have a lot of success, but I do like San Diego State. I've said that all year. I think they're probably the most complete team, certainly have the best resume of the Mountain West schools, but I think New Mexico can be the most dangerous. Talked about it since the beginning of the year. I've had a Final Four future on the Lobos. Now they've needed to win the stinking conference tournament to get in, but that sort of run they made to win the Mountain West is exactly why I like this team. Jamal Mashburn Jr., House, the other guard, Eddie House's son, I believe he is, which I just found that out yesterday, oddly enough. These guys are really, really good, and they got Dent too. Like all these guards that can really go. Now it's going to win you some games in March. I like them to beat Clemson. Baylor over Colgate. Really no need to talk about that one very much. This Dayton Nevada game is tough. I think Nevada is good enough defensively to beat a Dayton team that I've just haven't bought into all season. Like this is what I was looking at earlier. What if I told you that Nevada was going to be the third and really the second best team that Dayton has played all season long? Earlier in the year, Dayton played Houston on a neutral floor and lost. They also beat St. John's, who is 26th in KenPom but didn't make the tournament. Nevada is the next best team that Dayton has played all season long. I don't think they're going to be ready for Coach Steve Alford and the Wolfpack. I'm taking Nevada here. So I have the 10, the 11, and the 12 all winning in the West region. And then I'm advancing Arizona along as well. Going up to the South bracket, Houston certainly advancing past Longwood. Then Nebraska and Texas A&M. Maybe one of my favorite first-round matchups. Casey Tominaga against Wade Taylor IV, Tyrese Radford. All these guys for Texas A&M. I just think that Nebraska is a more complete team. Texas A&M is so hit or miss, which can be good or bad in the NCAA tournament. If they're on, like they seem to be against Kentucky every time they play, they're going to win this game. And heck, they're going to give Houston a run for their money. But they also could go 3 for 24 from 3, turn it over a bunch, not guard anybody. In case Tominaga could go for 30 points in this game. I just trust Nebraska a little more, and I'm going to advance them here. Wisconsin, James Madison. It's always tough. Again, you want to pick some 12s over 5s. James Madison, probably one of the most trendy upset picks we've had in a long time, with them winning 31 games. But I actually like Wisconsin in this one. I've liked Wisconsin all season long. I know they went through that really tough stretch where they lost 4 straight, 5 out of 6, and heck, like 7 out of 9 games. But they seem to right the ship, obviously, in the Big Ten tournament, making it to the championship game, taking Illinois down to the wire. I just think they're going to have a little bit too much offensive firepower for the Dukes here, rolling with the Big Ten team against the Sun Belt in this one. Also taking Duke over Vermont. Vermont team's tough, and they're no stranger to March Madness and even having some success in March Madness. But I think that Kyle Filipowski and those freshman guards will just be too much for the Catamounts in this one. I think the run for NC State comes to an end. Texas Tech will advance there. To me, that's just one where sometimes the team that goes on a historic run and wins their conference tournament ends up laying an egg in the NCAA tournament. You know, the kind of the old that they are who we thought they were sort of thing. I think it was a couple years ago, maybe 2021. What year was that when Georgetown? Oh gosh, that was a long time ago now, wasn't it? Whatever year it was, a while back when Georgetown went on a run. I think it was Georgetown to win the Big East tournament. And they just got blasted in the first round. I think that's what you're going to see here from NC State. Ultimately, they don't, really belong in this tournament. They're not an NCAA tournament caliber team. Texas Tech is. Coach Grant McCasland does a great job. They're going to win this game. Going to take Kentucky, my Wildcats, to beat the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Great story for the Golden Grizzlies. Coach Greg Campy, been there for 40 years. There's a lot of things I like about this Oakland team. played one of the tougher non-conference schedules in the country. So to me, they would be talked about like some of these other mid-majors. If they had played like they would have 26, 27 wins if they didn't schedule so tough in the non-conference. But they played Ohio State pretty tough. They played Illinois pretty tough. They went on the road and won at Xavier. Um, they have a guy in Jack Golke who shot 327 of 335 shots have been threes. They have another guy that can really shoot it from three. They have Trey Townsend, who's one of the better off the dribble foremen probably in the country, like 6'6", 230-pound bruiser who will back you down off of the dribble, play a unique kind of matchup, hybrid zone defense. But Kentucky just too much firepower in the first round here. Tonight we're going to get the Boise State Colorado game, but either way, I like Florida to win this one. Um, yeah, sorry, Travis. It's going to be a tough game. It really is. But one team has Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard and Antonio Reeves, and their team does not. Obviously, tough news for the Gators. Micah Hanglotten going down with that kind of gruesome broken leg in the SEC tournament. But still have Walter Clayton Jr. Still have Zion Poland. I think the Gators are going to roll really against either one of those teams. Though I do really like KJ Simpson. He's the type of guy that we could all really get to know for the Buffaloes if they were to advance here. Marquette, how healthy is Tyler Kolek? That probably matters a lot for how far we advance them in the NCAA tournament. Not sure it matters to advance them past the Hilltoppers. Now, Coach Steve Lutz in Western Kentucky, they do play a really up and down tempo style. Um, if there's going to be a 15-2 upset, probably either like it to be South Dakota State or Western Kentucky, but just don't really foresee either one of them happening. Purdue against the winner tonight of Montana State and Grambling. Obviously, I'm going to take the 16 seed here. Um, no, but in all seriousness, if anything weird happens to the Boilermakers in the first round of this tournament, or probably even in the second round, like it's just going to be all bad in West Lafayette for Matt Painter and and everybody associated with Purdue basketball. I can't see it happening again. Now, nobody could have seen it happening last year. I guess I guess maybe other than Dave Portnoy, who bet on Fairleigh Dickinson, and my friend Eric Davidson, um, who who, who said that they had a shot to beat Purdue, and then it ended up happening. But I do think that Zach Edey, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, all those guys are just too much this season. Utah State and TCU. I'm taking TCU in this one. I really like Coach Jamie Dixon's squad. I think they're pretty good on both ends of the floor, and probably just better than Utah State, despite the 8-9 seeding here. One of the most um, anticipated games of the first round probably is this 5-12 matchup between Gonzaga and McNeese. Obviously, at McNeese, the Cowboys, they have Coach Will Wade, a couple of Division I transfers. This the biggest turnaround in college basketball this season. They went from being not good to winning 30 games. Shadada Wells, Christian Shoemate, all these guys just having excellent seasons for Coach Will Wade. But I wish they were playing somebody else. Against almost anybody else, like from the 3 line through the 6 line, I would be taking McNeese, but I'm not going to be taking them against Gonzaga. I really like the way this Gonzaga team's been playing down the stretch, really ever since seeing them in person beat Kentucky at Rep Arena. I know maybe I'm a little biased because of that, but I like Anton Watson a lot. I love Graham Ike. I like their other 5 men, Braden Huff, off the bench, Ben Gregg. Uh, Ryan Nimhart is a good enough guard. Nolan Hickman's a good enough guard to win some of these games, and they have tough matchups inside. I'm going to take Gonzaga to advance in this one. If that game isn't the most anticipated of the first round, then here in the Midwest region, I think that it's 4 seed Kansas against Samford. Buckyball, everything going on with the Bulldogs. 29-win team on their way to winning the Southern Conference. Rolled past Furman, East Tennessee State, Mercer, all in the conference tournament. They're excellent three-point shooting team. 39.3% from three, led by guys like Ryland Jones, Jaden Campbell. Obviously, a core inside for them as well. Kevin McCullough out for Kansas, out for the tournament. Hunter Dickinson sounds like he's going to be playing and at least relatively healthy. I just can't imagine Hunter Dickinson, Bill Self, the Kansas Jayhawks, losing to Samford. But I talked about this on the Alan Cutler show yesterday on ESPN Radio in Lexington, that it's really dangerous when you have these like kind of low major teams that probably are going into this game expecting to win. Travis will appreciate this. He's probably still watching now, but I likened it to when I was coaching at Defiance in 2015. We had a team like Samford. We were a low major Division III team coming out of the Heartland Athletic Conference at Defiance. So we went and played the number one team in the country, Wisconsin Whitewater, defending national champions. Hadn't lost to a Division III team in 2 years. Played them on their home court in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Travis, Mason Roth, Bernard Edwards, some of these guys, like they all, I guarantee you, and Travis can attest to this in the comments, they thought we were going to win that game going into the game. I guarantee it. Um, because he said thanks for the reminder. Because they're tough dudes. They're basketball players. They all thought they were supposed to win the game, even though nobody else in the country thought they were supposed to win the game. I think Samford guys think they're supposed to win this game, and that's a dangerous outlook to play against because they're a confident group that aren't going to be afraid of the Jayhawks. I say all that. I probably just told that story so I could tell the story about the Defiance team because I'm still taking Kansas. But any chance I get to talk about that, I like talking about it. 6th seed South Carolina against 11th seed Oregon. Oregon, I've seen some people talk about like them getting healthy. To me, they're not so much getting healthy as they are just staying healthy with the group that they have. Like they're still missing guys from early in the season, but they've settled into a rotation now for a while. Jackson Shell said one of the better freshmen that you probably haven't heard of or watched a ton this season, having a great year for the Ducks. Jermaine Cousinard, a guy that's been in college basketball for a million years now. He's an East Chicago Central guy from here in Indiana. Tough dude. Kerry Wakendo, Georgia transfer for them to Fally Dante, obviously around the basket. Kwame Evans, another freshman that's quietly had a pretty darn good season for them as well. I like that they've settled into that 8-man rotation. I really trust Coach Dana Altman in March. Obviously, Coach Lamont Paris, probably National Coach of the Year this year. The Gamecocks have had an excellent season, but I'm actually going with Oregon to pull the upset here. I love the way that they've been playing. Obviously, your Pac-12 champions as well. Taking Creighton to beat Akron, and then I think Colorado State beats Texas here in the 7-12. But before the game last night, I said I think either Virginia or Colorado State's going to beat Texas. It's kind of out on Coach Rodney Terry. I think that ended up being a bad hire for the Longhorns. Now, they do have some offensive firepower, but the Colorado State team, as they proved last night, I know it's Virginia, but good defensively, efficient group. I think they can beat Texas. Then no Magic for St. Peter's this year, even as happy as it would make my brethren and sisters in Big Blue Nation if they were to beat the Volunteers. Don't see it happening. I think Tennessee advances there. So now back up to the East bracket. I'm going to have UConn over Northwestern. I think the Boo Booey magical run probably just ends there. Huskies are they're the most complete team in this tournament. That's why they're the number one overall seed, but it's going to get tougher from this point. I like Auburn to extend their winning streak and take down the Aztecs of San Diego State. In a game of firepower, I have Illinois advancing past BYU. I really like this Illinois team. Obviously, they're, again, coming off of winning the Big Ten championship. Taylor Shannon Jr. is really good. Marcus Domasak, all those guys, really good. Again, big guards. Ty Rodgers, big guards. Guys that can score in multiple ways and hurt you, not just with their perimeter skill, but also their physicality around the basket. This is going to be too much for BYU there. Washington State, Iowa State. I think the Cougars have a real chance to win this one, but just hard to pick against it. Again, I think the Cyclones are probably it's interesting that we thought they might get a 1 seed and end up getting the last 2 seed. Again, much to the chagrin of Huskies fans and UConn fans everywhere. This is a really tough one. Two good defenses. Coach Kyle Smith's one of the best in the country there at Washington State, a guy that could continue to climb up the ranks, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with Iowa State. Just can't get out of my mind what they did to the Houston Cougars in that Big Ten championship game. North Carolina over Michigan State. This hadn't been the year for Michigan State, and I don't really see it changing, even though it's March and it's Coach Izzo. Just if they're lucky enough to get past Mississippi State was going to be a heck of a battle. I think they'll fall to the Tar Heels. really want to take Grand Canyon here against Alabama. They are a team, again, Tyron Grant Foster is going to be one of the best players in the court, even with Marcus Sears on the floor. They're a team that I think can guard, that athletically they can guard Alabama. But it's been tough to pick against this Alabama team, despite the way that they struggled some at the end of the season. Kind of talking myself into Grand Canyon right now, but just don't want to really expose myself to picking a specific 12 seed. That's the thing. And I was talking to my dad at lunch about this before um, hopping on the show, but when you pick these brackets, it's hard to not pick chalk because in theory, like in a vacuum, every single game, I think that generally the better team is going to win. And also, like to win bracket pools and things, it's generally smarter to pick some chalk because you kind of want to have the same picks as everybody else, except for getting the Final Four, getting the champion. So, I'm going to continue filling out this bracket. Do I think it's going to look like how I picked it? No. Like if I could tell you that one double-digit seed is going to make the Sweet 16, I would say, yeah, one double-digit seed is going to make the Sweet 16, but I'm not going to pick it because I don't know exactly which one it is. Now, I'll sit here and tell you right now, let's go ahead and do this. Like, I think Grand Canyon has as good of a chance as any double-digit seed. If you want to pick a double-digit seed to make the second weekend, think about Grand Canyon. Think about New Mexico. Probably think about Oregon a little bit. Um, if Tennessee lays an egg there, those would probably be my top three if I had to pick. Probably not Nevada. So yeah, let's say it this way. I think that either Grand Canyon, New Mexico, or Oregon will make it to the Sweet 16. I don't think I'm going to pick any of them here today, but I think one of them will do it if that makes any sense. Speaking of which, New Mexico and Baylor, for the same reasons that I just talked about, we're going to advance Baylor on. I do think they're really, really good offensively. I love their guard play. Once again, Arizona over Nevada. Now, here's one that I talked about on a show yesterday with the guys at Covers. Did the Sharp 600 podcast, which was a lot of fun. Really didn't realize how big that show was until I was on it, which is kind of cool. But the winner of this Nebraska Texas A&M, I think Houston has the toughest road to the Sweet 16 of the number one seeds because I think that both Nebraska and Texas A&M have the firepower to knock them off. Again, I picked Nebraska, so Keisei Tominaga, obviously, but you have Rick Mass, some other guys on this team that are really good. But if it's A&M, Wade Taylor the fourth, Tyree Stratford, these guys have proven they can beat some of the best teams in college basketball. They've done it multiple times through SEC play. Do I think the Cougars lose here? No, but again, if you're telling me that one number one seed doesn't make the second weekend, I would put my money on it being Houston that doesn't make it. Duke, Wisconsin. I'm going with Wisconsin here. Um, Duke just hasn't beaten really anybody that's very good. The ACC was bad this year. Duke is 11-8 in quad 1 and 2 games, which obviously isn't bad, but it's also not outstanding. Um, I like this Wisconsin team offensively. I think they have enough firepower, enough kind of unique guys to keep up with Duke that they can win that one. Another, I'm not going to call it a homer pick because I actually think it happens. And obviously, heck, they're a trendy pick to make the Final Four. But I think that Kentucky beats Texas Tech again, just too much firepower. I really like Pop Isaacs and those guys for Coach Grant McCaslin's Red Raiders team. I think Kentucky wins there. Marquette in Florida, this one is tough for me because I love Walter Clayton Jr. I love Zion Poland. I love this Gators team. Again, stinks that Micah Hengeladen went down. I don't think that necessarily impacts their day-to-day ability to win games in the NCAA tournament as much as just it stinks when you watch one of your friends break his leg in a basketball game. But even if Tyler Kolk isn't exactly 100%, you still have Cam Jones. You still have Oso Ighodaro, all these other guys for Marquette. I think they will get it done and advance here. But again, if you're telling me that a 2 seed goes down, I think that I think I might say this too. I've already said that I think that either Grand Canyon, Oregon, or New Mexico makes the Sweet 16. I'm going to say that either I'm going to say that one of the two seeds doesn't make the second weekend. How about that? Again, I'm not going to pick them, but I think that one of the two seeds goes down, and I'll probably rank them in likelihood of Marquette being the most likely, Iowa State being the second most likely, Arizona being the third most likely, and Tennessee being the least likely to not make the second weekend. Moving on down to the Midwest, round 32, I have Purdue um, staying alive against TCU again. As a Kentucky fan, as a Kentucky sports radio writer, Kentucky needs a second weekend desperately for Coach Calipari, for the morale of Big Blue Nation, all that. I don't know if they need it as desperately as Purdue does, though. Like, these fans are clamoring for some regular season success to be met with postseason success. I think Gonzaga beats Kansas. Again, I really like this Gonzaga team. I think they have the firepower offensively to make it difficult for Kansas to keep up, though Hunter Dickinson could be the kind of equating factor around the basket. I like Creighton to beat Oregon here. Um, I think the Blue Jays are built for March a little bit. Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Again, I've talked about it all year. I think their big three is as good as any big three in all of college basketball, and it gives them a chance on any given night. Now, they've been a little up and down. They're a little inconsistent because of three-point shooting and all that, but it's kind of like Alabama. Like, yeah, they're inconsistent because they're three-point shooting, but they're really darn good at shooting threes. So more times than not, they figure it out. Then I will take Tennessee over Colorado State. Now we're into the Sweet 16. This UConn Auburn game is going to be a bloodbath. I love this matchup, and I think Auburn is uniquely capable of beating the Huskies. John A. Broome is going to bang around Donovan Clingan inside, and he's going to win that matchup. John A. Broome is awesome. I love what he brings to the table. I think that Jalen Williams could potentially win his matchup against um, guys like Alex Karabin in the front court for UConn as well. Now, Tristan Newton is going to be far and away the best guard on the court. I mean, he's a first team All American, and honestly, Auburn's guards aren't great. Now, Aiden Holloway could have a game where he plays like it, probably. I don't know if Trey Donaldson can, but I think that Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, they're why they ultimately win this game. But man, it ain't going to be easy, and I'm not going to be shocked. I, I'll say it like this: from here on out, it's hard to imagine UConn not making the Sweet 16. Their Sweet 16 and Elite Eight games are going to be extraordinarily difficult. Part of that is because I have Illinois beating Iowa State, and I think that Illinois, with their size in the backcourt, with their offensive firepower, with Terrence Shannon Jr. kind of equating the All-American matchup with Tristan Newton, they're going to be uniquely capable of knocking off the defending national champions in the Elite Eight. We'll talk about that more in a second. UNC Alabama. I've always said it's pretty much in my gambling manifesto. Don't bet on Alabama. I also don't really like picking the games because again, there's hardly any team in college basketball more capable of playing a game in which they're unbeatable. But they also could lose to just about anybody, including Charleston in the first round. So I'm just going to go with my gut here. I think that UNC is the more trustworthy team. RJ Davis obviously had an outstanding year. Armando Baycott got himself an AP honorable mention All American nod as well. I think Baylor beats Arizona here. Again, I just really like this Bears team. I trust Coach Scott Drew. Um, it's a it's one of the many teams in this tournament that is excellent offensively and okay at best defensively. They're sixth in KenPom offensive efficiency, 63rd in defensive efficiency. But Ray J. Dennis had an excellent year. The freshman Jacoby Walter, one of the best freshmen in college basketball. Yves Missy, a freshman that's kind of really lit up college basketball this season on the interior. Jalen Bridges, Jaden Nunn, all these guys, they just have the firepower. They have the horses. I think they can beat this Arizona team. And I'm just kind of going with one of the better teams in the Big 12 against the best team in the Pac 12. I just think Baylor's better. I think Baylor is better on a neutral floor than Arizona. I think Houston beats Wisconsin. The end of the road for that Badgers offense. Hard, the Cougars are suffocating defensively. Again, I want to know exactly how healthy Tyler Kolek is. I want to watch him play in the first weekend, which I might do in person. They are here in Indianapolis. But I think Kentucky, if this team doesn't make a little bit of a run, when you have Reed Shepard, Rob Dillingham, and Antonio Reeves, we're going to regret it for years to come. Having a team with 3 guards as good as those guys is not something that happens very often, even at the University of Kentucky. These guys are special, special players. They need to make a deep run, and I do think that the Wildcats make the Elite Eight in the South, this region. Similar to what I talked about with the matchup of UConn and Auburn, I think Gonzaga is that type of matchup for Purdue. Zach Edey is going to have a really hard time in ball screen action. Trust me, I watched it firsthand for Kentucky when they just scored. The Bulldogs did again and again and again on the roll. Zach Edey is going to have to be the most active he has been, and he could get into foul trouble this game. He could get tired in this game. This is probably another one. I'm taking Purdue, but I'm going to say this: if the Sweet 16 matchups are as I picked them, if UConn plays Auburn and Purdue plays Gonzaga, one of those one seeds is going down for that specific matchup again. Uh, If we start the second weekend with Gonzaga, Purdue, and UConn Auburn, UConn Auburn, one of those lower seeded teams is winning that game. I've got Tennessee over Creighton. I know all the Kentucky fans get mad at me, but this Tennessee team is just better than what. And I know they laid an egg in the NCAA, or in the SEC tournament. I know they've laid an egg a couple of times throughout the season, still, but their offensive floor is so much lower because they have first team All American and Dalton Connect, and they still have the same great defense. And I like Sakai Ziegler, and I like Santiago Vescovi is a guy that I trust. I like Jonas Adu a lot around the basket. I think this Tennessee team is the best chance they've had under Coach Rick Barnes to kind of put some of the crazy talk to rest about how he comes up short in March. And I know, like, when it happens so many darn times, you start to kind of believe that it's true, but I don't really believe in that kind of stuff. I think Tennessee's really darn good. I think Rick Barnes is really darn good. And I think they will make some noise in this tournament. UConn, Illinois, again, winning is hard, Travis. We all know that. UConn, Illinois, again, I think that UConn Auburn game is going to be a dogfight. I think this game is going to be different, much higher scoring, but equally as much of a dogfight. Illinois could go out and score 90 and make it really hard for the Huskies to win this game, but I like UConn still. Again, this most complete team in college basketball. They have the guard play. They have some interior presence. They defend hard to pick against the Huskies. I also think that UNC makes it here out of the West region. RJ Davis is a guy that's going to keep you from, at some point, North Carolina's going to have a game that they should lose, and RJ Davis is going to make them not lose the game. That's the way I look at the Tar Heels run out of the West region. I'm going to take Houston to beat Kentucky in the Elite Eight of the South. At some point, this team is probably going to hit a wall. They're going to have a game where they just can't get any stops. They're going to have a game where they maybe don't shoot it as well. Though I think these 3 guards actually don't get enough credit as to how insanely special they are. That being Reed Shepard, Rob Dillingham, and Antonio Reeves. Antonio Reeves should have been an All-American. But the thing that worries me as a Kentucky fan against Houston is not only can they probably guard Kentucky better than anybody has all year, though the Wildcats have played excellent offensive games against some of the best defenses in college basketball, but still hadn't played Houston. And then Jamal Shedd and LJ Cryer, excellent guards, and Kentucky doesn't always do great against teams with excellent guards. So I like Houston there. And then in a battle of 2 teams that haven't made a Final Four, coaches that are labeled as teams or as coaches that fall short in March, Purdue and Tennessee, something has to give. Somebody's going to break through and go to the NCAA or the Final Four. I just think it's Tennessee. I think that they can slow down Zach Edey enough. I think that their guard play. I think that Zakai Ziegler can give Braden Smith enough fits. He's not necessarily better than Braden Smith, but I think he can defend him in a way that makes him better on a given night. And then I would, in an Elite Eight game to go to the Final Four, I would just rather have my franchise piece, my best player, my first team All American. I would rather it be Dalton Knecht than Zach Edey. That's not saying in 37 out of 38 games, I wouldn't rather have Zach Edey because he's probably the most dominant player we've seen in 2 decades in college basketball. But I would just rather have a 6'7" wing that can rein it in from three and dunk on your head also than a plodding 7'5" big man. And that's why I think that Tennessee can ultimately win that game. Then I'm going to have UConn against Tennessee for the national championship, with UConn being our first back-to-back NCAA champion since Florida did it in 2006 and 2007, I believe. Were the years that they went back-to-back with Joakim Noah and all those guys. But I really do think the Huskies go back-to-back. Again, they just have all of the pieces. Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, Alex Karabin, Donovan Clingan, guys off the bench too. Like, they have a great coach in Danny Hurley. They are accustomed to winning. They know how to win. They know how to win in the NCAA tournament. I think that the Huskies will repeat. So again, kind of going back big picture, a couple of things I talked about it. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pick a bunch of upsets when I'm picking a bracket because I don't know which ones necessarily they're going to be. And as the weekend actually goes on, I'm going to have my gambling picks on Twitter at BRamseyKSR and all that. So you follow along that, and I'll have more kind of game to game picks as I see these teams play again and play in the NCAA tournament. But I do think that, let's see, I labeled them as Grand Canyon, New Mexico, or Oregon. So either 12 seed Grand Canyon, 11 seed New Mexico, or 11 seed Oregon. I think one of those three teams makes the Sweet 16. I think that if UConn plays Auburn and Purdue plays Gonzaga, as I picked, I think one of the 1 seeds will go down. I think that if a 2 seed were to not make the second weekend, it'll be Marquette. I think that if a 1 seed isn't to make the second weekend, it'll be Houston because of that 8-9 matchup. So those are some of the overarching themes that, again, it's hard to pick, but I think that's kind of where my head's at. And then I think there's a real chance that Samford beats Kansas. I think there's a real chance that McNeese beats Gonzaga. I just think Gonzaga is really good, and I wish that McNeese was playing somebody else. I think it's possible for Duquesne to beat BYU because I think they can guard them in a way that will give them some trouble. If you're looking for that 15 seed, look no further than Zeke Mayo. Think back to when Oral Roberts pulled a big upset a few years ago with Max Absmus. I'm not saying that Zeke Mayo is as good as Max Absmus, but it's not insane to say that. Made 77 threes this year to 37.6% clip. Dynamic. 6'4" guards. This guy's bigger too. Don't be shocked if he scores 30 and they beat the Cyclones. I'll just say that. That's probably, again, I like Colorado State to beat Texas. Certainly possible for James Madison to win as well. But again, my Final Four, I know it's chalk, but it's just the way that it goes sometimes. I have UConn playing North Carolina. Then I have Houston playing Tennessee. Ultimately, UConn repeating as your 2024 national champions by beating the Tennessee Volunteers. I think that'll do it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed going through a full tournament bracket with me, getting a little bit more information on each game as we did it. Some big picture thoughts on some upsets that could happen, who might go down early, which double-digit seeds can make a little bit of a run in this tournament. We covered all that. I'll continue to answer comments after the show is over if you have them. So either leave a comment here on YouTube or on Twitter, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And that's true throughout March Madness. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel here, the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Also find the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show on Spotify or wherever you do listen to your podcast episodes. I have new episodes coming out every Monday and Friday. That'll obviously continue throughout the month of March. I'm going to have some really fun things planned for that show over the summer when there's not as much basketball going on as well. And then also, as always, follow me on Twitter at BRamseyKSR for just constant coverage of everything NCAA tournament related over the next couple few weeks. Thank you all for tuning in today. Hope you enjoy the final two play-in games tonight, and then Thursday and Friday coming up and throughout this weekend. Thursday through Sunday is arguably the best stretch of the year if you are a college basketball fan. So that's going to be a ton of fun. Make sure you're locked in for all of that good stuff coming up. And we will talk again on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show on Friday morning. Thanks for listening.